Good morning, thank you for coming. Before we begin, I would like to thank the sponsor of these classes, Mr. Shlomo Werdiger from Melbourne, Australia. When I was there, I talked to him about the idea of wanting to do a series on Moshiach, and he was very, very gracious and kind to agree to be a sponsor of the entire course. The way this classes are going to be set up is that we're doing 3 semesters of 6, hopefully 6 classes each. We are beginning now the first semester, which is called Moshiach the Person. The second semester is going to be Moshiach the Era, and the third semester is going to be Moshiach the Process. Now, I do want to make an important announcement. We got to advertising this pretty late. This came out just literally 3-4 days ago. And that which is understood that that's pretty common, but I don't feel that bad because Mashiach is also late, so it goes along with the Mashiach class. To those who did not make it here today because for whatever reason you didn't schedule this in, and you're one of those organized people, or those who just didn't hear about this yet, and it's only going to find out. We're going to do a lot more advertising for this class, public advertising, publicity for this class this week, and you missed the first class. This class is an introduction. So there is nothing really that fundamental in the understanding of Moshiach and in the subject that we're going to discuss in the later classes that you're going to be missing by not being here in the first class. So you can fully join the rest of the course. In addition to that, the class is being recorded, and we're not immediately posting these. They'll be available at a later time. But for those who will join next week, and if you're looking privately to receive the recording or the video of this particular class, we will send it to you. So in that sense, you won't really have missed out much by not have been here for the first class. So that's an important notification. Now, regarding this important topic, learning and studying about Moshiach, I'd like to introduce first why this class. Why are we doing this class? I am pretty happy to say that this is probably the most important class taking place in the world right now. So if you're here, you can feel pretty important, and I'd like to say why that is. That this is the most important class across the entire world that's happening now, and why we should all be part of it and try to bring more and more people to attend this class. Studying Torah is always a great thing. And over here, because the question over here is, if you're going to commit 18 hours for this series of 3 courses over this, you want to make the most out of your time. So Torah study is never a waste of time. And Moshiach is very much part of Torah, like any other subject of Torah, and therefore one gets the full experience of Torah study by learning about Moshiach. But in addition to that, it's an exciting topic. Moshiach is the yearning, the aspiration, the dream of all of the entire world, and definitely the dream of the Jewish people from the very, very, very beginning of time. Moshiach is God's dream, and it was in Hashem's mind when Hashem created the world. The sages say that there were 7 things that precede creation. One of the things that are listed that precedes creation is the name of Moshiach Tzidkenu. That's how fundamental Moshiach is. Right at the beginning of the Torah, when God creates the world, even before He moves the water away so He allows space for people to live, it says, "V'ruach Elokim merachefes al pnei hamayim." The Spirit of God was hovering over the water, and the Medrash says, "Ruach shel Moshiach." This is the Spirit of Moshiach. The Talmud says in Masechta Sanhedrin, Daf Tzadik Ches, according to one opinion, the world was created only for Moshiach. So Moshiach is absolutely very, very, very fundamental. And therefore, the subject of Mashiach is a very, very important subject to learn, to study about, to get to know. But in addition to that, we have 13 principles of faith. We have an animamin, a belief system that was developed by Maimonides, by the Rambam. And the Rambam gives us the foundations and the pillars of our Jewish faith. One of those pillars is the belief in Moshiach. And not only the belief of the Mashiach, but we have to wait for Mashiach's coming all the time. And the Rambam says anybody that doesn't believe in Mashiach, or even more, the Rambam says, even if you believe in Mashiach but you're not awaiting his coming all the time, that person is considered a heretic, a kafir. It's very serious. So, and as we understand that if we know nothing about something, how can we wait for it? If we don't understand it, we just know it's going to be good. But how can you develop an excitement and a desire and a want and an anticipation for something that we know nothing about? This particular subject of Mashiach, even though there is so much in Mamara Chazal, there is so much out there, but there isn't clarity. It's a very, very confusing subject. There are many, many contradictory things that are stated. It's very, very hard to get a clear picture. So we don't really know what we're waiting for. So to appreciate and to know what we're waiting for, we have to learn about Mashiach. That's why it's important to study this class, to come to these courses, and to get clarity in Moshiach, what Mashiach is all about. But to take this further, because one can technically argue, okay, the belief in Mashiach is one of the 13 principles of faith, but there's another 11 that come before. So did we have classes in Maayon Yisroel and all the other 11 principles of Mashiach? Maybe first study, principles of faith. Maybe first study all of them, and then eventually you'll get to Mashiach as well. The truth is that most of the classes we give at Maayon, which are the teachings of Chassidus, which give us a recognition and understanding of the unity of God, that covers, and the ideas of Hashem's communication with the world, and the idea of prayer and the like, and it discusses at great length the afterlife and the elements. Basically, if you're learning Chassidus, which we're doing all the time, you're covering most of the 13 attributes of faith, most of the 13 principles of faith, what we learn here all the time. So yes, we've given that the attention it deserves. But there's something more, particularly now regarding Mashiach, is that there's an Inyan called Zman Gerama. We're supposed to live with the times. We're supposed to live with the current time, what is happening. And we are now in a very unique time in history. We are already in the Messianic era. We've entered into that time. And this is notwithstanding all the rabbis have always spoken about throughout history, various different kitzim, various different end times, time of end time, where they predicted Mashiach was coming. And we can say, okay, so now we also have different simane giyula and different things that have been said. This is a very, very, very different situation. Our situation today is not a kates, a certain time, auspicious time for the giyula to happen. The general, we're going to discuss this as well in the classes. Generally, we understand from the Talmud, from the Gemara, that there are two possibilities for Mashiach's coming, for the time that Mashiach will come. One is called Achishena, when Hashem hastens the Geulah and moves up the redemption to an earlier time. And then there is something called Be'ita. Be'ita means the set time that is etched in the very, 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 very in the world itself. It's etched in history, in time itself, that when that time comes, Mashiach has to come. It's not a segula, it's not a auspicious time to hasten the Geulah at any earlier time. Whenever we spoke about kitzim, different times of the Geulah, these were all auspicious times that if the Jewish people would do tshuva, they can bring Mashiach earlier. However, when we're saying that now we entered into the Messianic era, it's because we actually reached the time that is set for the Geulah. And that is, according to all of Chazal, in the middle and towards the end of Elef HaShishi, of the 6th millennium. And we are now in the end, we're already past midday, we're in the last quarter of Elef HaShishi. Mashiach is not meant for the 7th millennium. The 7th millennium, which is the year 6000, which is 221 years away from now, that's already post-Mashiach era. So Mashiach's era is right now. So therefore we've entered into the time of Mashiach, and it's really, really, really troubling why we did not yet merit the full revelation, even though, as we discussed in other classes, there are many signs of Mashiach activity in the world, but we didn't yet experience the ultimate full manifestation and revelation of Mashiach completely in the world. That is very troubling and very, very painful. So the question is, what can we do about that? Can we do something to hasten the redemption? Is there something that we can do? And the question in general is in regards to Mashiach. Are we responsible to make Mashiach happen? Or is Mashiach God's business? Many Jews have the attitude, even God-fearing, religious, observant Jews, have the attitude that it's not our business. Mashiach, why? Because their understanding of Mashiach is that Mashiach is a reward. As we're going to learn later in the actual discussion, various different understandings of what characterizes the time of Mashiach. Is it a reward? Is it the goal, the end goal, or the like? Various different ideas. If you say Mashiach just as a reward, one can question. God will give us the reward. Let's not be impatient. Hashem knows He owes us the reward. He will give us the reward whenever He will choose to give so. Well, that contradicts, by the way, a teaching of the Chafetz Chaim, great teacher, Chafetz Chaim. He wrote a book. People know the Chafetz Chaim for his being so adamant and so involved in helping people watch what they speak, Lashon Hara and the like, reminding us that the grave sin of Lashon Hara and how to be careful with speech. But we don't realize the Chafetz Chaim also stood for something else that he was very, very, very passionate about, extremely passionate about, and that is the coming of Mashiach. The Chafetz Chaim wrote a book called Tzipiso Yeshua, and in that Sefer Tzipiso Yeshua, he's so demanding that Jews have to wait Mashiach. But he adds more, and he says that just like an employee needs to get paid immediately when his work is done, the employer has to pay him. And the halach is he's not allowed to delay. He has to give it to him in the next period of time. If he worked during the day, he can look for the money during the nighttime. If he worked during the night, he has to pay him in the daytime. But the halacha, the Chafetz Chaim says, is only if the guy gives him a bill. If he doesn't give him a bill and he doesn't ask for the money, he's not obligated to pay him. At that time, he will pay him whenever it is, but he doesn't have to unless he asks for it. So the Chafetz Chaim says, we the Jewish people have been employed by Hashem to do our work of Torah and mitzvahs. And he says, if we're not going to ask for the Geula, if we're not going to come to Hashem and ask Hashem for the Geula, then we're responsible for the delay. It's our fault. God will give it to us when we will ask Him. And actually the Gemara actually also says, or it's a medrash where it says that the Moshiach will not come until the Yidden will be Toveya. Toveya means we will demand it. We will demand the return of Malchus Beis David. That means we will care about it enough that we should demand it. For that reason, it is the responsibility, we do have the responsibility to make Moshiach happen. But I want to add to that something very, very important. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, in the year 1991, everybody knows that from all the tzaddikim out of all of history, there were those who stood out with an exceptional determination and a desire for Moshiach. Known amongst them as the great Hasidic master, actually the founder and founding father of the Satmar dynasty, the Yismach Moshe. Everybody knows about the Yismach Moshe. His waiting for Mashiach was like on levels that are just unbelievable. Including to that is the great leader, as we said before, the Chafetz Chaim of the Lithuanian world. But amongst the list of those who waited for Mashiach impatiently, we can definitely list the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Rebbe waited for Mashiach, like from the day, you see, he writes in his letters, from when he was a little child, all of his dreams and his aspirations was to bring Mashiach. And if anybody looks at the Rebbe's leadership through all of his years, his one goal, he set his goal at the first discourse that he gave, that it's all about the job of our generation to complete the Golus and bring Mashiach. It started already from his father-in-law, the sixth Chabad Rebbe, who spoke La'alta L'tshuva, Li'alta Giyula. Jewish people immediately, let's instantly do tshuva, and then we will instantly have the Giyula. Mashiach became like a frenzy, became powerful drive in which to wait the coming of Mashiach. Now, in the year 1991, you can see the Rebbe got frustrated with the fact that he sees that he's kind of our coach, and he's our cheerleader, and he's trying to get all of us to get really, really excited and to demand and cry out for Moshiach in a very strong way. But the Rebbe felt that we, the Jewish people, are kind of asleep. We're not getting it. And even as close as Hasidim are not really, truly involved in this endeavor to bring Moshiach. It's almost like the Rebbe, I guess, felt himself that we're relying on him to do it. It's his business, not our business. And in a very frustrating talk, I'm saying frustrating talk because anybody can watch that Sikha, you can see the Rebbe is extremely frustrated and very hurt, deeply. You see that he's shaking. And the Rebbe is then giving over the thing about and saying that I've done everything I can and I'm giving it over to you. In other words, guys, I need your participation. And the main thing the Rebbe then said is that even if we do, but now the main job is that we have to take responsibility. Responsibility means bringing Mashiach becomes the responsibility of every single Jew. And the Rebbe said that every single Jew, man, woman, and child. He says, you are responsible, you have to make it happen. But at that time, Hasidim were stunned and said, what do you mean we have to make it happen? What are we going to do? Up there in the higher worlds, he can do things. But he has access to souls, he has access to very Telioah Navi, to Moshe Rabbeinu. These are people that can go and storm up the heavens like Mordechai. But what can regular folk do? What do you want us to do? People were really shocked. And the Rebbe in the next talk on Shabbos didn't leave us hanging. He said, basically, I want you to continue doing what you were doing before, but with a special emphasis on Mashiach. He said, you should give tzedakah, but every time you're giving tzedakah, it should be driven with the drive. You should learn to, and we're not asking for you to come up with new inventions, new things. All the things we always have been doing that are all segul, extra limud Torah, extra love, Avas Yisroel, which we know is very important because the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam and the like. It's these things that we need to focus our energy and our drive to do these particular things, and this is going to bring Mashiach. That's what he said on the first Shabbos afterwards. But then the next Shabbos, Parshas Tazria Mitzayra, the Rebbe did come up with an innovation, with a new idea, a new program which he never said before. And that was as follows. He says that the most appropriate way, the most direct, and if you're looking for something in particular to do to hasten Mashiach's coming in the fastest way possible, meaning we want to speed it up, you can do many things. And we have absolute amunah. Every time you give a penny for tzedakah, you're hastening the redemption. But we've been doing that for thousands of years. We really, really want to get the show moving. We want to get this thing happening if we're impatient. So what are we going to do to really, really drive the speed of Mashiach and make it faster? He said, Aderech HaYeshara, the most appropriate way, is the study of Inyanim of Mashiach. To learn about Melech HaMashiach, meaning learn about the person, and learn all about him, and learn about the Mashiach era. And when we learn about Mashiach, that has a special segul and a special ability to hasten the Geula. And therefore he gave a directive that men, women, and children should study about Mashiach, and by doing that, we are making Mashiach happen. It's a very, very deep, heart-wrenching request. And if we think about it, our Rebbe is not playing with us. If he told us, he's a big tzaddik, and if he told us that this is the method, this is the way to make Mashiach happen, then this is the method. At that time, I'm just going to share something very nice. At that time, the Rebbe quoted a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos because it was Parshas Tazria Mitzayra, and it was the second week after Pesach. So the perek that we were learning that week began with the words Rebbe Omer. Rebbe says, Ezehu derech yeshara. What is the right path? Sheyivro loya adam, that a person should choose in his life. What's the correct path? So Rebbe says the correct path that a person should choose is that kol shehu tiferes loisa, something that is beautiful to the one that's doing it. Utferes lo min ha'adam, it's also beautiful for mankind. In other words, something that's nice for people, but it's also nice. That means it's a path in which you're not just benefiting yourself, but you're benefiting people. That's what the Gemara, that's what the Mishnah says. So at that time, in that talk, the Rebbe asked a few questions on these words. What does it mean? Ezuhu derech yeshara. What does it mean? What is Rebbe asking? Ezuhu derech yeshara. What is the correct path? What do you mean, what's the correct path? The correct path, the righteous path in life, is Torah and mitzvahs. What other path do you have? There's actually a pasuk that says, Ki yesharim darkei Hashem. The ways of God are upright. The ways of Hashem are straight. So the right path for a person to live his life is to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. What other paths? What is Rebbe coming up with a new innovation? The other question, which is not really a question in Pshat, but it's a little diuk, and it's something that we know that. Why does the Rebbe use the term Eiza Derech Yishara Sheyiver Loi Ha'adam, the man? We know that the human race is referred to by various different names. Enosh, like we say Anashim, people, Gever, Gevarim, and then we say Ish, and then we say Adam. Adam is the most superior name that a human being can be called, is called Adam. Why is Rebbe in the Mishnah addressing the people that are on the highest level called Adam? Why is Rebbe not addressing all of humanity, all people, all Jews? Should have said, Eiza Derech Sheyiver Loi Ish. What's the emphasis on Adam? I mean, Akasha it's not, because you find many times Chazal use Adam, but actually, when Chazal use a certain word, the word is the right word. So why does Rebbe use the word Adam? The idea that he explains is as follows. Rabbeinu HaKadosh had a particular connection to Moshiach, to the point that we know that there are certain tzaddikim, certain great people, that they are connected to Moshiach more than anybody else. And even more than that, it says that there is a neshama of Moshiach in every generation. Hashem plants the potential for Moshiach in every generation. The Gemara says in Masechtas Sanhedrin that if it's from the living people, if Moshiach is going to be someone who's alive, then it is Kegoin Rabbeinu HaKadosh. It's like Rebbe. He is Moshiach, or he could be Moshiach in the generation. Why? He's a Chassid Gadol. He's an extremely righteous person, but extra righteous. And in addition, but at the same time, he suffers a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And in the psukim, in the verses referring to Mashiach, it speaks about Mashiach as a person who suffers the pains of the Jewish people. So it can't be that he suffered for his own sins, because he's a perfectly righteous tzaddik. He never did any sin. He doesn't have any blemish. So his suffering is the suffering of the people. And therefore it says it about it. So Rabbeinu HaKadosh himself, his entire life, his aspiration, his dream, his desire is to bring about the Geula Shalema. That's what Rebbe wanted to do more than anything else. That was his dream and that was his desire. Now, so that's why Rebbe is asking, Eizahu Derech Yishara. What is the quickest path? We want to bring Mashiach. What can we do more than, of course there's Torah and mitzvahs, but we know that there's certain things within Torah and mitzvahs that have a special segula, that have a special ability to bring Mashiach. What is Derech Yeshara? What is the most direct path to achieve the goal? Like a company sits down and has a meeting, and there are many possibilities, suggestions that are presented for the company to achieve its goal, but what is the most direct and the one that has the most impact, or that it should be successful? So which one is it? That's why the question is on the word ha'adam. Who's the man? The man is referring to Moshiach Tzidkenu. Ha'adam, the ultimate human being. Or even deeper than that. Ha'adam is referring to the entire body of all Jewish souls. Jewish people are really all one neshama. We're all one Adam, we're one person. But we need to go through certain purifications. And through our purification period, we are called different names at certain times. Just like a person can be either a Gever, or he can be an Ish, or he can be an Enosh. And then ultimately, when he reaches ultimate perfection, he's called Adam. The Jewish people as a whole also develop. Now, the truth is, most people, if you will talk to them about the situation of our generation, they would have very negative things to say. We are lowly, we are dark, we are shlamazels, we can't compare to the previous generations. But that's only true when we look at things from a very superficial way. When we look much deeper, we realize that it cannot be that God created a mess. That God created a human being that ultimately fails and fails and fails and fails until he fails so badly that God has to rescue him. We have to believe that humanity is making progress, and we the Jewish people are also making progress. So we the Jewish people go through stages, and eventually the last stage, we're not just us, we represent 3.5 millennia of Jews, of Jewish souls, and we do certain tikkunim. And when we reach the final tikkun, when we're holding at the very, 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 very fast end time, we are called Adam. The Jewish people right at the threshold of the Geula, today's day, are called Adam, the man, the ultimate rectification of Adam Arishon. Rebbe's question is, Eizeh derech sheyivra lo ha'adam, that human being, the Jewish people in the last generation, who's that? Us. Us living today. What should you do? What's the right path that we should choose to hasten the redemption? That we should choose to get the job done. What's the job done? That which Adam needs to do. So the answer is, Kol shehi teferes lo isel v'teferes lo min ha'adam. What is beautiful to the maker and beautiful to people. What does that mean on a deeper stage? So again, I told you earlier, this pirush that the Rebbe gives is not a simple pirush of pshat. It's a little mystical, it's a little bit esoteric, but the Rebbe says that we know Torah is called teferes. There is chesed, gevura, teferes. So there's the three attributes, and correspond to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Yaakov is teferes, and we know Yaakov is the pillar of Torah. So when we say kol shehu teferes, means Torah is called beauty. And Torah serves as the ultimate unifier between Oiseha, between the one who created the world and the world. That means Teferes loy min ha'adam. What does the Torah do? Torah bonds God and the world. Torah connects heaven and earth. Torah connects Hashem to the world. That's why Torah is Teferes, because Teferes means synthesis, harmony, bringing together. So the Torah is Teferes loy min Oisel. Oisel doesn't mean the person. Oisel means the maker of everything. Who's the maker? That's God. Teferes loy min ha'adam is humanity, the world. Who bridges humanity and the world, which is Bias HaMashiach? That's Teferes, that's the Torah. Therefore, the Rebbe says like this: even though there are a lot of mitzvahs that we can do, and as we said before, tzedakah is one of them, and Maayon Yisroel, and other things that we can do to hasten the redemption, but the most important one that's going to have the strongest effect is the study of the concepts and the ideas of Mashiach, that we should all become very clear in this subject. And when we become clear, in addition to the fact that that's going to put us into a Mashiach zone, that's going to put us into a different reality, in a different mindset, in addition to that, we are actually drawing Mashiach's, the powerful, godly light of Mashiach, and drawing it down and facilitating it into the world. So based on that, that's my motivation of why I'm giving these classes. I'm giving these classes. Now everybody can come for whatever reason that's motivating you. What's motivating me is the idea that I need to do something. I can't just sleep. I know that the responsibility has been given to every single Jew. So personally to me, I need to do whatever I can to bring Moshiach, and that is to study about Moshiach, being that I'm also a teacher. So when I study, I teach. So therefore I'm giving the opportunity for everybody to come and study and learn. And I hope that your kavanah, that you can set your intentions, that not only is this an interesting subject, it's something you're curious about, you want to know more about, but that you actually are participating in an effort to make Mashiach happen. As we spoke about in so many of the other classes, there are so many signs that Mashiach is right here, right now, and there's a certain tension in the world right now, and we want to like roll the world over from V'nahapachu. We want to turn the Golus over, the exile over, and turn it into Geula, and we all need to push together. So if we all gather together and with an effort, with a concentrated effort to actually bring Mashiach, hopefully we can roll that over. So now, what we are going to do is, the subject, as I mentioned today, of the introduction is just very briefly, we're going to go through the sources. Meaning to say, who are we relying on most to give us the clarity and the understanding of what Mashiach is all about? You see, as I mentioned earlier, the subject of Mashiach is all over the Torah. Beginning with Chumash, I'm just going to point out to a few places where the Torah speaks about Mashiach there's secrets about Mashiach in every pasuk. We have a class here called Mashiach Matters, in which I am going through already for the last 4 years. I'm going through every pasuk in the Torah. We're holding a Parshas Toldos. There's already 120 classes online for the Geula, for the Mashiach seed in that pasuk, in that story. So you can find Mashiach everything, because Mashiach is at the very, very nucleus of creation. So it's at the very nucleus of the Torah. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where is Mashiach discussed in an open way. So there is as follows. In Parshas Vayechi, when Yaakov gives the blessings to his children, when he speaks to Shevet Yehuda, he prophesies the end of days, the Davidic kingdom. You also have in Parshas Balak, when Bilam Chas v'Sholom wants to curse the Jewish people, and Hashem turns it into big blessings and amazing prophecies. So over there he speaks about the end of days, and he prophesies about the amazing time of Mashiach. Then later in Parshas Nitzavim, there too as well, where the Torah talks about the end of days, at Moshe Rabbeinu before his passing, and he says how the Jewish people are going to do tshuva, and how God in the end of days is going to take you back to the land of Israel, and so on and so forth. So it talks about Mashiach. So these are the primary psukim, and also in the Shira of Hazinu, you have some psukim discussing Mashiach. Then later, in the prophets, you have the entire prophet Yeshaya, which most of the book of Yeshaya are prophecies relating to Yemosha Mashiach. A lot of Yirmiyahu talks about Mashiach. Zechariah, Tzefaniah, Micha. I mean, you have so much nevuos and prophecies that were all prophesizing about Mashiach. This has to be something so amazing that the Nevi'im would spend so much of their time and so much of their communication with God thousands of years ago to speak about the awesome time of Bias HaMashiach. In addition to that, there is countless in Mamar Chazal, which means in the writings, in the oral law, in the oral tradition, in Torah Shel Peh. It's endless. There is in Medrash, so many Medrashim. In the Talmud, again, most noted is the Masechta Sota. So a lot of part talks about Mashiach. There is a Masechta Sanhedrin, a lot about Mashiach. And scattered throughout all of the Talmud, and scattered throughout the Medrash and the like. And the Zohar, I have a book over here called Zohar HaGeula. It's a collection of maybe like 300 pages of quotes of Zohar, where the Zohar is talking about Mashiach. Once you get into the writings of Kabbalah and the writings of Chassidus and the like, it's a vast ocean of knowledge. And an ordinary person becomes almost impossible to study the subject and get clarity of what are we supposed to believe in, what is supposed to happen. Because first of all, prophecies are spoken, that the way prophecies were given, many of them were spoken in metaphoric language. So it's hard to know what is considered, what is actual, and what is only a metaphor. In addition to that, in Mamar Chazal, you have such extreme descriptions about Mashiach on the two ends which contradict each other. And it becomes very hard to understand, so what is it going to be like? For instance, there are certain descriptions amongst the sages where they describe Mashiach as a very magical world. For example, Gelus Ka'is, the world or earth is going to give forth finished rolls, bagels and rolls and cookies are going to grow finished from the ground. That sounds like a fairy tale. Sounds very magical. Talks about all the animals of the jungle becoming completely tame, and the fact that you can actually go through the safari, the Zimbabwean jungle, and in other places there in Africa, and you can walk amongst lions and everything will be fine because the nature of all animals will change. That's what's discussed. And it talks about the world night becoming day because the moon will become the size of the sun and things like that. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, you have Amar Shmuel, where Shmuel says, Ein bein olam hazeh le'Yemosha Mashiach. There is no difference between this world and the world of Mashiach. Ella shibud malchi yos bilvad. The whole difference between now and Mashiach era is only that the Jewish people will not be subjugated to foreign nation. That we're just going to have our own autonomous power in the land of Israel. That's the whole difference. And life goes on exactly the same like it was. So what are you supposed to do with that? How do you reconcile that? So you have Mamar Chazal that speak of such an ordinary, regular world like it is now, which is easier for us to believe, but you also have so many Mamar Chazal talking about the magic that's going to be, and the resurrection of the dead, of course, and the like. So how does one reconcile? How do you come to a clarity on to know what are you waiting for, and why should you be waiting if you don't know nothing about it? So therefore, we need to filter it down. We have to come to what's called, like the Chafetz Chaim made a sefer called Mishnah Berura. Mishnah Berura means a very clear Mishnah. It's clarifying to you. There's so many laws in Hilchos Shabbos. You're so confused. So many. You can't paskin from Gemara. You learn Masechta Shabbos. You can't. So it was filtered till it gave you a very clear, concise halacha of how you're supposed to behave on Shabbos. So the same is regarding to Moshiach. I myself would never take upon myself the task of giving you a Mishnah Berura on Moshiach. Because how in the world, I don't have that knowledge to be able to do that. But let's see if we could find great Talmudic or great rabbis who at least helped us to a certain degree to filter the information down to us. So we are primarily going to base our teachings on 3 Gedolei Yisrael, and they are as follows. We're going to be working primarily with the Rambam, and I'm going to explain each one why we're using that person. We're going to be working with the Rambam, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon. We're going to be using the Ramban, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, and then we're going to fast forward and look at the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who expounded on the Rambam and on the Ramban more than anybody else in this subject. So from all that vast teachings, as we're going to filter it all through, we're going to see if we can come up with a very clear understanding of what Moshiach's world is going to be. Now, why the Rambam? Let's start with the Rambam. The Rambam, first of all, has contributed to the Jewish people one of the greatest contributions. In the words of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rambam took Torah Shebal Peh, the entire oral law, and he transformed it into Torah Shebiksav. He made it a written law. Now, as you have, the Torah was given in 2 ways. It was given Torah Shebiksav, it was written. It was also given Torah Shebal Peh. Torah Shebal Peh is an oral law, and it was handed tradition. Now, the first one who made that transition to take Torah Shebal Peh and bring it down was Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the author of the Mishnah. But Rabbeinu HaKadosh did it over 2,000 years ago. And therefore, after Rabbeinu HaKadosh made the Mishnah, authored the Mishnah, in which the Mishnah gives us kind of the basic halachas of every subject in Torah, the law, the final law, you have the Gemara that expounds on the Mishnah and rips apart the Mishnah. And after you learn the Gemara, you're more confused in the sense that now you have so many machlokas and so many different arguments. And then when you start learning the commentaries of Rashi and Tosfos and Rosh and Rif, it's like there's no way you can come to a final understanding but just learning Gemara. So what did the Rambam do? Rambam, who was a 12th century scholar, went and he took all the information from the Gemara, from the Mishnah, from all of the Torah, and he simplified it into short little halachas, and he covers the entire Torah. And that's the reason why the Rambam is a major authority. No matter what, we can't go away from Rambam. Rambam is an authority of Torah. Probably say singular. Ad kedei kach, so much so that our Shulchan Aruch, which all Jewish people follow the code of Jewish law, the Shulchan Aruch, is based, the Rabbi Yosef Karo, who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, a 16th century rabbi from Tzfas, who gave us the Shulchan Aruch. Rabbi Yosef Karo writes that his pillar of foundation of deciding the final verdict of Jewish law is based on three people. The Rabbeinu Asher, the Rosh, Rabbeinu Yitzchak Alfasi, the Rif, and finally the Rambam. And he says wherever there is an argument, if 2 of them agree, we follow the halacha. So Rambam is the absolute authority in Torah. Okay? Now others that argue, and not always is the halacha like the Rambam. Now that's in general when it comes to Torah in general. When it comes to matters of faith, the Rambam becomes even more important. And the reason for that is there are, in this particular subject of clarifying what our belief system is, the Rambam went into territory and did a job like no one else. In other words, codifying Torah, there were others to some degree that were other codifiers. But when it comes to matters of the clarity on what a Yid has to believe in, the Rambam is the one who gave us the 13 principles of faith. And that's accepted by all Jews. Before the Rambam, there were different ideas of what a Jew has to believe in. Because you can find, based on different sources of midrashic sources and the like, you can come with very, very strange ideas in your Judaism. And there were great people before the Rambam that had these ideas, but they didn't have. The Rambam came and said in his introduction to the Perek Chelek in Sanhedrin, the Rambam gives us clarifies the 13 principles of faith, and it's amazing how the Jewish people have accepted the 13 principles. There are those who question why the Rambam put certain things in, but no one in all of after the Rambam came and argued with the Rambam to the point that said, no, we have a different belief system. It is accepted across the Jewish people, Sephardic, Ashkenazic, Hasidim, non-Hasidim, across the entire world, we rely on the 13 principles of faith. Which means that when it comes to matter of our emunah, Rambam stands out on a greater degree than everyone else. In addition to that, here's a very interesting thing, particularly regarding Moshiach. Our belief, our following of the Rambam is the most important, because the reason I'm saying this is because Rambam contradicts in many of his teachings many things that the Chazal say beferish. There are many things that you can read in Gemara here and there, and you can say, well, maybe Moshiach is going to come like this, or maybe he's going to come like that. And I will say to you, but the Rambam says differently. He says, so the Rambam is just one opinion. I'm telling you, Rambam is not just one opinion. Rambam is what we call Pesach Achron. He is the one who gives the Psak Halacha. So even though you might find a medrash like that, or a statement like that, you can't use that, because the Rambam saw that medrash, and he saw that thing, and yet his Psak Halacha, when he filtered everything, he came to this Psak. What's unique about the Rambam in the laws regarding Mashiach is as follows. Rambam talks about Mashiach in various places. It's not in one place. In his Pirush of Mishnah, Rambam wrote a commentary on Mishnah, which was his first chibur that he made. Rambam speaks about, when he clarifies the 13 principles of faith, in the Akdama over there, he talks about Mashiach and gives us a description of Mashiach. Then in his famous book Mishneh Torah, the Rambam talks about Mashiach in two places. In the laws of repentance, in the laws of tshuva, and in the end, in the laws of kings, he devotes 2 entire chapters, the last 2 chapters in the book of Rambam. The Rambam talks about Hilchais, Melech, Malachim, the laws of Mashiach. And the Rambam over there discusses, first of all, Mashiach himself, who he is, meaning he tells us what are his qualifications to be Mashiach, what is the work he needs to do in the world, what are his pu'ulos, what are his activities, what kind of influence he's going to have globally, and also the order of his revelation. How is he going to, meaning, how will we determine the Jewish people who Mashiach is? The Rambam gives you a very concise description about so and so and so and so, this is what needs to be done. In addition to that, Rambam talks about Mashiach in a letter called Igeres Teman. Igeres Teman is a letter that the Rambam wrote to the Yemenite Jews that was severely being oppressed by the Muslims. And they suffered tremendously, and the Rambam wrote them a very long letter of chizuk. And in that letter of chizuk, the Rambam discusses Mashiach, and that becomes a major source for information regarding Mashiach. But what's unique about the Rambam, and that's why I want to say that Rambam becomes so important, is the Rambam is the only one in all of Torah, in the body of Torah, in all the Torah knowledge that we have, that speaks of Mashiach in halachic terms. Everyone else discusses ideas, philosophy, concepts, ideas about Mashiach, midrashic discussion. The Rambam brings it down to halacha. And when you're bringing something down to halacha, that's where it becomes the clearest. As we know, it's very easy to write a book on ideas. But when a rabbi writes a psak halacha, he needs to put himself into it so strongly, because he knows that someone else is going to behave and live his life in accordance to what your psak is. So halacha is the sharpest, if we can say, the clearest of all aspects of Torah is halacha. Rambam is the only one who gives us halacha regarding Moshiach. Now, to add one more very important idea regarding the authority of Rambam, and the reason why we take the Rambam more serious in this particular matter than anybody else, is because here's a very idea. The whole idea that Judaism takes Moshiach so fundamentally is a Rambam idea. The fact that the Torah speaks about Mashiach all over the Torah has not been seen throughout history as a pillar in faith. The Rambam is responsible for the song on Imam and Babuna Shalem Abiyas HaMashiach. Because of the Rambam, Jews throughout all of history took the idea of Mashiach so seriously. There are great Torah scholars that came after the Rambam who disputed with the Rambam, who asked questions. They asked questions on the Rambam. They said, why, when you put 13 principles of faith and you put Mashiach amongst them, why is Mashiach such a core principle of faith? It's not a question whether Mashiach is going to come. If the Torah says so, for sure Mashiach is going to come. The question is, why is it a pillar that if a person doesn't believe in that, he's lacking, or he's lacking in all of his Judaism. This person is considered a heretic. That's novel. The Rambam is the one who said that. The Chassam Sofer questions that. The Chassam Sofer says, why? I understand Mashiach is going to come, but why is that a pillar to Yiddishkeit? So they are Barbanel. I think the Radvaz, other very great commentators question that. They take the Rambam to task. But they didn't uproot, they didn't pull out that pillar, but they say they don't understand it. Now, why Taka did the Rambam put Bias HaMashiach as the pillar of our faith? That's because the Rambam understood Mashiach like no one else. The Rambam's understanding of Mashiach was very, very, very complete and very whole and very deep. Now, on my own, I chas v'shalom wouldn't say it, because who am I to say about these great people? But when you learn the Rambam very, very seriously, you go very deep, and you appreciate the ultimate depth of what the Rambam is saying, then you understand that the questions that those who asked on the Rambam, why Rambam puts it as a pillar of faith, is because they didn't get how the Rambam's understanding of Mashiach is all about. I on my own wouldn't say that, but as we're going to get to the next authority, as we said earlier, I mentioned one of the authorities of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So the way he explains Rambam and he uncovers the hidden depth of what the Rambam is saying, then we get to understand how all those who question the Rambam's fascination with Moshiach and putting Moshiach as one of the main pillars of Judaism, you realize that their objections, it's just because they did not get what the Rambam was saying about Moshiach. So therefore, that makes Rambam's authority on Mashiach even more, because Rambam had an understanding of Mashiach, as we see more than everyone, more than his contemporaries, and even in all of Jewish history. You see Rambam's understanding in particular of this subject is very unique. Now, in addition to Rambam, there's one more important note is to note is that the Mefarshim say, the commentators on Rambam, that when you find in halacha that no one argues on the Rambam, that means that everybody, like the Rambam has a lot of critics. For instance, most noted amongst the critics of the Rambam was the Ravid. The Ravid lived at the same time of the Rambam, and he literally doesn't mince any words. He attacks the Rambam sometimes viciously, and you wonder, like, why is the Rambam so nasty to the Ravid nasty to the Rambam? He many times, he like really gets upset at the Rambam. He says, this man doesn't know what he's talking about, and so on and so forth. So the Mishnah Lamelech says that when you look in Rambam and his critics, his commentators, whether it's the Beis Yosef or anybody else, doesn't oppose the Rambam, do not conflict with the Rambam, is a sign that they agreed with him. Because whenever they had a reason not to agree, they disagreed. Whenever they had something to pounce on the Rambam and fight him, they would disagree with him. The fact that they don't disagree, it's not because they were tired, it's because they learned it and they studied it and they saw there's nothing to argue on the Rambam. The interesting thing is, on the last two chapters in Hilchis Moshiach, there is no arguments on the Rambam. No one. The Ravid is quiet. That Ravid has been so bubbly throughout the entire book of Rambam, who's always attacking the Rambam. Over here, he's silent. So we see that everybody has accepted Rambam's approach to Mashiach, and there's no dispute. So he remains, so we say, the posek when it comes to Mashiach. Now, in addition to the Rambam, we have the Sefer, we have the great Torah scholar. He's the next century, the 13th century scholar, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman. Okay, now he's also called Moshe. By the way, the sages tell us an interesting thing. In Medrash Rabbah, it says there isn't a generation where there isn't someone in the generation that's like Moshe. In every generation, there has to be someone like Moshe. So there is no question that the Rambam was the Moshe Rabbeinu of his generation. Ad kedei kach, so much so that on his gravesite it is written, Mi Moshe ad Moshe lo kam Moshe. That from Moshe Rabbeinu until Moshe ben Maimon, no one was like Moshe. That's how strong people believed in the Rambam. But Rambam was definitely the Moshe in his generation. But there was another Moshe that comes the next generation, also seen amongst the Jewish people as a greatest of the scholars, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman. Now he also wrote extensively about the Geula in 3 places. He wrote a sefer called Sefer HaGeula. He wrote a letter called Igeres HaVikuach. Vikuach means a debate, the letter of the debate, and where he debates with Christian, with priests and the like. He had great debates. Ramban was forced to debate with the Christians, and then from that came out a book called, and obviously Moshiach is something that, a matter of contention between the Jews and the Christian faith, because they also have their Moshiach. So Ramban argues with them, and there's a book called Igeres HaVikuach. In addition to that, the Rambam, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, in his Pirush on his Torah, has many passages where he discusses Moshiach. Now, at certain places, Ramban was a fervent believer in the Rambam. He held of him tremendously, ad kedei kach, so much so that when he quotes Rambam, he refers to him as the Rav. Harav, he doesn't say any other titles. He doesn't say Rabbeinu Moshe, just Harav. Basically accepting the undisputable authority of the Rambam. Yet, Ramban, when it comes to Mashiach, argues as different opinions in certain matters regarding the Geula. Most noted amongst them, let me give you an example. The question is, will there be death after Mashiach comes? Or will we live forever? That's the question. Will life go on on earth forever, or will there be death? Rambam clearly states that after Mashiach comes, people will die, and the neshamas will go back up to heaven. Ramban argues, and he says there's no death after Mashiach comes. The Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection, is permanent, and everybody's going to stay here in this world forever and ever. That's a major, major argument between the two. The question is, based on what we said before, we follow Rambam and everything, do we at times consider the Ramban? So what the advantage the Ramban gives us over the Rambam is that the Rambam approached everything from the mind of a philosopher. The Rambam was a choker, he was a very big philosopher, he was great, influenced very strongly by Aristotle and that kind of thinking. And the Rambam approaches everything from the approach of philosophy. Ramban was a Kabbalist. Now, truth is, the great Hasidic masters and many people have written that the Rambam was also a Kabbalist. But the Rambam kept his Kabbalah secret. He doesn't reveal his knowledge of Kabbalah at all. There are little hints to it. For instance, he begins his Sefer Mishnah Torah with Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is a Kabbalistic type of a thing to do. Yesod HaYesodas V'Amud HaChachmas is Yud Kei Vav Kei with the tetragrammaton. That's a sign that the Rambam was a Makubal. But still, the Rambam did not openly flaunt his knowledge of Kabbalah. If he was a Makubal, he kept it a very good secret. Very well hidden. The Ramban was an open Makubal, and therefore he bases a lot of his ideas on, as he calls it, Torah's emes, the Chachmas emes, the wisdom of truth. And the difference of Kabbalah is divine transmission versus philosophy, which is human thinking. So the Maila we get, the quality that we get from Ramban over Rambam is that in the Ramban we have ideas that are mystical. And what's the quality? Obviously we all understand that when we're referring to Mashiach's times, the physical changes that are going to take place in the world, whatever they are, government changes, Beis HaMikdash being rebuilt, all the Jewish people serving Hashem and the like, is all going to be a derivative of some great godly revelation, of some great experience that is going to be a universal experience. Now that universal experience is already related to the more mystical and the esoteric. What aspects of what is being revealed? So for that we need an expert in mysticism. You can't approach Mashiach only from dry halacha. You need to have a knowledge of the abstract, of the hidden realms. In that, Ramban is more of an authority than Rambam. Therefore it would come up, but how do we paskin? When they argue, which way do we go? So here is a pshara, here is a thing that, again, based on the Lubavitcher Rebbe's teachings, is that as follows. It depends in which area we're looking at. If we're looking about practical occurrences in the physical realm, where the idea is primarily a technicality in regards to the order of how Mashiach is coming, whether Mashiach is the one who gathers the Jewish people to Yerushalayim, or Kibbutz Galuyos happens before Mashiach. There's an argument between Ramban and Rambam in that. According to the Ramban and Shir HaShirim, the Jews will go up to Eretz Yisrael before Mashiach, and then Mashiach comes. Rambam holds no. Rambam says that Mashiach is the one who has to make Kibbutz Galuyos. So an argument like that, we follow Rambam, because Rambam is authority when it comes to halacha down here in the practical sense. However, when it comes to an element of ultimate life, whether it's going to be in the spiritual, where all people are going to die, or whether it's going to be down here, that's related to more of a mystical concept of appreciating and understanding the evolution of divinity, of godliness in this world. Something like that, we give credence to the Ramban, who is known to be a greater Chacham in Chachmas HaKabbalah, and his teachings are based on Chachmas HaNistar, on the concealed teachings. So this is an idea that we have to understand, and Be'ez Hashem, as we will learn the classes, we will try to explore in what aspects we follow Rambam and what we follow Ramban to get a clear picture of the ultimate Moshiach time. Now, by the way, just a very cool idea. The Arizal says that both Rambam and Ramban, they both are rooted in Adam HaRishon's neshama. We're all rooted in Adam HaRishon's neshama, and he says both of them are in the payas. Adam HaRishon has payas, like everybody has payas. Payas is their side locks. So he says both Moshes come from Adam HaRishon. They were rooted in Adam HaRishon's payas. Ramban is on the Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman is in the right paya. Rambam is on the left side, and he says the reason is because the right side is a side of more revelation. Yamin is revelation. That's why Ramban, who's rooted in the right side, was openly a makubal. The Rambam is on the left side, when the left side is more concealment. That's why to him, Chachmas HaKabbalah either was hidden from him, or even if it was revealed, he kept it concealed. That's an interesting idea. Last and finally, I just want to add the final source. Why do we take the Lubavitcher Rebbe on this very, very, very seriously, particularly? See, here's a very important idea. The Gemara says, when you're dealing with halacha, halacha kerav be'isurei ukeshmuel b'mamayna. When it comes to matters of halachic decision, and there's an argument between the two great scholars, Rav and Shmuel, these are the two greatest scholars, the law follows Rav when it comes to matters of religious matters, prohibitions. Whether your pot is kosher or not kosher, if Rav and Shmuel debate, we follow Rav. Even though Shmuel was very knowledgeable in the laws of Isurim, we always go after Rav. When it comes, however, to monetary disputes and monetary issues, we always follow Shmuel. The reason is because Shmuel was the expert in that field, and Rav was the chief expert in this field. In religious matters, in the realm of Isurim, kosher, not kosher, that was Rav's particular field of expertise. Shmuel's particular field of expertise was in the laws of Maayon. Based on that notion, if we're looking for a person who had particular expertise on the subject of Moshiach, it's a person who breathed the Moshiach every second. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he's a little boy, he writes already. Before he went to Cheder, he was dreaming about Moshiach. His mind was always thinking about how the Giyul is going to be, and this is carried through his entire time of his. And the Rebbe spent literally, as I mentioned earlier, hours upon hours and upon hours expounding on Maimonides, on Rambam, taking every word of Rambam and examining it like a diamond cutter holds a diamond before they cut it. I used to work for someone who had fancy diamond stones who could have been sold for $5 million, depending, and the value of the stone could have been $3 million or $5 million, depending on how you cut it. You're talking about a decision to make. And I remember standing and looking at this fancy yellow or pink diamond in the rough for hours, days, and not being able to make a decision. And that same way, the Rebbe looked at every word of Rambam, analyzed it from here and from there, and no one else did it. No one else in all of history discussed these halachas and went through them so seriously. It's for this particular, in addition to the fact that he's a Hasidic Rebbe, and Hasidism, the teachings of Hasidus, particularly illuminate Moshiach, because Torah Hasidus is related to the Torah of Moshiach. As the Baal Shem Tov went up to heaven, they said to him, when the teachings of Hasidus will spread around the world. So therefore, another interesting idea, I'm finalizing with this, the Baal Shem Tov says that the word, that the Raz, which means secret, the word Raz, which is secret, is Gematria 207, the same Gematria as the word Oyer. Oyer is Aleph Vav Reish 207. So the Baal Shem Tov says, the person who knows the secret of something can shed light. If you know the secret of something, being that Chasidus reveals the secrets of everything, it's Pnimius HaTorah. So when someone has knowledge in the esoteric inner essence of Torah, then everything becomes illuminated in a very, very, very great, luminous way. Particularly a subject so confusing and so vague, like the subject of Mashiach, becomes very clarified through the perspective of Hasidus. And we're going to see that we're going to take Hasidic concepts and actually learn Rambam with Hasidic concepts, and it's the only way that Rambam makes sense. And the only way we're going to be able to solve contradictions in Rambam based on what? On these Hasidic ideas. I think with that, I'm very confident that by the time we're concluding this course, we will have tremendous clarity in Moshiach. And I mean, obviously there's always more to explore, and I do want to give credit because I myself would never have been able to clarify and come to this understanding, because the Rebbe's talks on Moshiach span 39 volumes of Likutei Sichos, plus so many other in Sefer HaSichos talks that on, and there's so much to learn and so deep. So there's a fellow, his name is Berel Wolf, he lives in Tzfas. He gave out a book 2 years ago called Inyanoi Shel Moshiach, and over there he basically systemizes all the sichos. He spent hours and literally years, 10 years in yeshiva, studying these talks. And as a result of that, and he's a very, very phenomenal writer, and he took all these sichos and he created a very systemized way of learning and understanding based on Rambam, Ramban, going through all the sources of Igeres HaTeiman and the like, and primarily how the Rebbe filters all of this out and gives us and comes to a clear state. I'm using his book as the foundation of what I am giving over. If anybody wants the sefer, it's called Inyanei Shel Moshiach. I have actually a few more copies. It's in Hebrew. It's a serious learning. It's not a couch type of a reading. You have to sit down and learn. That's why I'm going to be the shliach over here to sit and pore over it and learn it well, and then try to. And I have to sift out also because he's very, very elaborate. There's so much there to find what I think is the primary essential elements of all of this. Main thing is that even before the next class, we should be already in Mashiach should be here already. We should be already in Eretz Yisrael. Next week, Sunday, 10 o'clock. Join us for the next class called Job Description, a very important class about Mashiach.